Yeah, g'day YouTubers, Tinker O'Toole with another video. Hope you enjoy the video today. Please subscribe to the channel. Any comments, thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Yeah, g'day YouTubers, Tinker O'Toole again here with another video. We've brought two new splitting mauls. First one is the Stihl 3 kilo maul made by Ochsenkopf over in Germany. The second one is a 2.5 kg block splitter made by Cyclone here in Australia. So the Ochsenkopf is made for Stihl. It's an AX33CS. The maul is 70 millimeters wide on the top, and it has a 36-inch handle. The actual weight is 3 kilos. It has a 30-degree wedge on it, a metal overstrike protector on the side here, which is about 120 mil long. So that metal overstrike protector is quite good on it. So that's a great feature. It's about 2 millimeters thick. It's got a axe head protector plate on here so that the axe head doesn't come flying off, and so that's something that's starting to become common, because on the Fiscus Isocore Pro maul, which is this one here, it's got a pin that goes right through the handle to do the same sort of thing to stop the head from flying off. The total weight of the Stihl maul is 4.56, so it's getting right up near the Fiscus. The Fiscus weighs 5 kilo total weight, 3.6 kg on the maul, the head weight. So it's got a fairly large sledgehammer head, decent size, so that's actually good for striking steel wedges in, and has a fairly large handle. So the handle is a great size. I prefer a larger handle. You can get a fantastic grip on it. It's probably slightly a little bit bigger than I'd like, because when you do the grip test, you should be able to just get your finger in between your palm and your fingers. It's slightly bigger than that, but nonetheless, I prefer it that big than a skinny handle like the Fiscus maul, this one here. That's a little bit skinny for me, but nonetheless, it still works fantastic. So the only thing that I found out with the Stihl was the angle was slightly out, but then again, just about every splitting maul I find out, they do them on a linishing belt. And I've got a bit of a video that I'll put in there and show you about that, how they linish or what they do on the edge there. But typically you only want a beveled angle of no more than 45 degrees. So if this is 35 degrees, you don't want any more than 45. The moment that you increase this angle higher than 45 degrees is that you're going to require much more force to penetrate the wood. Even though you're only splitting the wood, nonetheless, more energy is required the moment that you go over 45 degree angle. So you really want to avoid anything that's got larger angles. If it's under 0.5 millimeter, then it's not as critical. But yeah, if you're talking about 2-3 millimeter width, then you certainly want to avoid anything that's over 45 degree if you've got a fairly large bevel on it. And most of the axes that I've ever brought, and I've got 17 mauls, only the Fiscus splitting axes are virtually perfect. They've got a 25 degree wedge on them and a 30 degree bevel on all their splitting axes. That's the X27, the X25, the X17, etc. It's only the splitting maul here that has about a 35 degree wedge, and it had about a 60 degree micro bevel on there of about 2 millimeters. I redid that beveled edge back to 45. So every maul that I get, I always redo the edge, that beveled edge, because most of the time it's not very good. It may be okay in other countries where they're splitting softwood, but here in Australia, no, you really do need a bevel of 45 degrees or less if you want to split hardwood, or if you your maul is constantly bouncing off the timber. Then yeah, you really need to check that beveled edge. Okay, so the next one is a Cyclone block splitter. This one here by Cyclone. It's got only a rubber overstrike protector. It's as simple as what they get. It's only a block wedge, so it's got a taper of about 30 degrees. It's got a 60-degree bevel, but it's only about 1.5 mils. So I don't like a 60-degree bevel. I'd prefer a 45, as I explained before. But because it's only about 1.5 mils, it doesn't give me any problems. But yeah. It's got a total weight, it's 2.5 kg. It's got a 36-inch handle. As I said, the edge is 30 degrees. And it's got a total weight of 3.7 kg. It's still got a reasonably large width there for the hammer, or the sledgehammer part, to knock in the wedges. The hand grip is quite good. It's quite comfortable. I think it's about 34 millimeters in diameter, so it's a nice hand grip. It's much cheaper than the Stihl, almost 3 times. This was about $180 Australian. This was about $63. But still, nonetheless, great splitter, great value for money. The other thing that can happen sometimes is when a lot of people are using these splitters, they're using them wrong. Normally you would just hold the splitter on a bit of an angle near your chest, and you would hold one hand up near the top like this. So what a lot of people do wrong, and I'll see if I can sort of illustrate this a little bit better, that if you hold the splitting axe with one hand, maybe I can zoom out, you might be able to see it better. Oh, you need to hold it like that, and you hold it near your chest, and with the left hand here, you push it up in the air, slightly over the back of your head, and as you bring it down, your hand slides down till it gets about in that position. And when you strike the timber, you should be striking it horizontal, so a lot of times you might have to bend your knees down when you strike the timber. If you do it that way, you'll find out that you'll use less energy. What you want to avoid is doing the barbarian, and what the barbarian is, you may have seen it on Conan the Barbarian, where they get the axe and they swing the axe right horizontal over the back of their head, and they use all their energy to, that may work for once or twice, but if you've got a split timber and it's bouncing off and you've got to do it repeatedly, you're going to get really tired doing the barbarian swing. So yeah, all as you do, hold the splitting maul near your chest on a slight angle like this, push it up in the air, and as you bring it down, slide your hand down and try and hit horizontal as close as possible, and you'll find out that you'll work quite good in that situation. Okay, so I'd just like to talk about what happens on production with a lot of these block splitters, splitting mauls, is that they're drop forged, then they go through a heat treatment to harden them, roughly to about around the mid 50s Rockwell, 52 to 55 Rockwell. Then they paint them, and before they put the handle in there, they generally linish them on a linishing belt. One, it's a commercial one that's up and down, vertical. Now, you can get jigs that fit on to the linishing belt, but it's evident to me that it's done by freehand. And the reason I say that it's done by freehand, is because when you look at the edge, you find the inconsistencies in the edge. You can find that the width of the grind has got a variation. You can find out that it's wider on one side and skinnier on the other, or you find out that it's ground just takes the edges right off on the corners, so you've got a different profile in the middle and a different profile on the end, because the person that uses the linishing belt is sweeping it backwards and forwards, putting different pressure on it. The other thing that you do find out on a lot of the splitting mauls is that the angle on the left side and the right side can be different. I do have an example of that. So if you look up in the top the top left-hand corner, you'll see this example of this splitting maul that I got. Now, I've got 3 of these. I had 65 degrees that I measured on one of them. The second one, well, this one that's pictured here is 90-degree bevel on it, and it's not exactly symmetrical. It's slightly different on one side than the other. You should be able to see that. The worst one that I had was 105 degrees. It was 60 degrees on one side, and it was 45 degrees the other side, totaling 105 degrees. So it's quite evident to me that it's done on a grinder or a linishing belt or a combination of both. It depends on who's doing it, what factory, and they're not using jigs. Now, 2 companies that I know that do a proper job, Fiscus. The actual wedge, splitting wedge, is 25 degrees on the cheeks. So that's the cheeks here. And the actual beveled edge that they put on, you can just tell that it's so precision, and it's identical on the left and identical on the right. And it's got a bevel of about 5 millimeters, and it's 30 degrees. So you've got 25 on the cheeks and you've got 30 degrees on here. All their splitting axes are the same, whether it's the X25, the X27, the X17. The whole lot of them are the same. The only one that's a little bit different, and they only make one maul that weighs 3.6 kilos. So that's the Fiscus ISO Core, the Pro Maul. It had a much larger bevel than 45 degrees, so I had to change that. I could tell that it was done on a linishing belt because it was different in the middle and the corners, so I knew that it was done on a linishing belt or a grinder because it wasn't perfect and it wasn't symmetrical as well. So that's the problem there. Now, did it work? Yes, it worked okay. I actually made sure that it was perfectly symmetrical, and I made sure that it had a 45-degree angle on it, and it works much better. All the splitting mauls that I tested, and especially the one that you saw up in the corner here that I showed before, it was bouncing off the hardwood timber, the ironbark. It just repeatedly bounced off it. I was going to have to do a really big workout and to try and split that timber. So what I did, I striked the timber. The log was about 1.5 feet in diameter. I think I striked it about 8 times. All it did was put a large dent in it. I proceeded to get the 9-inch angle grinder, and it came up really good, and I had an angle of about 45 degrees in the end with a bevel of about 2 millimeters. That was the width. Then I went back to the same log, bang, split the first time. Not a problem. Now, in other countries where they've got softer timber, it's not as critical. Now, you'll read a lot of things on the internet or even on the forums where someone will tell you, oh, look, a splitting maul doesn't have to be sharp. Well, that's just nonsense. Any woodwork tool that is sharp will cut into the timber or pierce the timber much better if it's sharper than if it was blunt. It's as simple as that. The sharper it is, the quicker it goes into the timber. Yeah, sure, we're not cutting the timber, we're splitting the timber. But nonetheless, that splitting maul has to enter the timber. If it enters it at 45 degrees or below, it's going to go into that timber with less force than if it was 90 degrees. If it's 90 degrees, it's going to have to be really soft timber. But if it's hard timber like eucalypts, and especially if it's cut down the base, it's going to bounce off the timber. So believe me, yes, a sharp maul does work better. A maul that's only got an angle of less than 45 degrees or 45 maximum will split much easier than anything that's above 45 degrees. As I said, I did have one maul. It was a Cyclone block splitter, 2.5 kilo. It had a 60 degree beveled angle on it, but the beveled angle was only 1.5 mm. At 1.5 mm width, it really didn't have any huge impact on its performance. And that's about the exception. If you keep filing that at a 65 degree angle, it'll get more and more difficult to split. And that's what I normally do if I have to resharpen the mauls. I try and make sure that I reduce that angle, and it definitely works better. I've proven it time and time again that it splits much more efficiently if it's less than 45 degrees, 45 degrees maximum. Simple as that. It's not rocket science. And unfortunately in the factory, for some reason, they're using linisher belts. They're not using jigs. They've just got some operator in there that's just running the edge of the maul over there. It's just not good quality control. Okay, so now that we showed you about the 45 degree angle and how important it is, and in the factory where they have the linishing process, I'd like to show you the Estwing, how the Estwing and the Fiscus, how they've got a precision ground edge on that's not done by an operator on a linishing belt. So quite easily you can see that machined finished edge is symmetrical, and on the other side you can see it there. And if we turn the maul round this way, that is symmetrical as what you're going to get. It is a machined finish. So it is really critical that during manufacture that you get the correct edge, and the Fiscus is no different. You've got a beveled edge here of about 4 or 5 millimeters. It's done on a machine, and it's perfect on both sides, exactly the same, because it's done on a machine. There may be some others on the market that have that beautiful precision machined edge, but certainly this one, and even the Fiscus here, and this one, and the Oxenkoff had to be redone. It was critical for me to do that because of the wood that I'm splitting, because I'm splitting Australian grey box, Australian, all the eucalypts here are very difficult to split, and even the hardwood, like the ironbark and the grey box, are right up there on the Janka scale. We have the hardest wood in the world. It's called bull oak. It's about 15.7 on the Janka scale. The grey box is about 14.5 on the Janka scale, and the ironbark is around about 14 on the Janka scale. So these are extremely difficult timbers to split, and especially if you're splitting splitting rounds that came from the base of the tree, are even going to be more difficult to split. So in that situation where you've got extremely hard wood to split, it is critical that you've got 45 degrees or less. Now, after putting the beveled edge of 45 degrees on the Fiscus IsoCore Pro Maul, it definitely works better. Same as the Oxenkoff, definitely works better. Anything with 45 degrees or less works better. Now, one of the things that you'll see on a lot of the YouTube channels is that you'll see 99% of people will all give a thumbs up for the Fiscus. And one of the reasons that they do is quite simply Fiscus have got their geometry correct, and their geometry is fairly standard, being 25 degrees on the cheeks here and 30 degrees on the bevel, and right across their range on all their splitting axes. That geometry is exactly the same. It's only the head weight that changes. The head weight is 2.4 kilos. That's the highest weight that they make in a splitting axe, and it's only if you go to the one splitting maul that they make that you got 3.6 kilo. Everybody that uses this will give it almost a 10 out of 10. I'm pretty much the same. I'll give it a 10 out of 10. It's got probably, it's very, very close to the oxen cough. It's probably got the largest splitting, or the hammerhead on it. It's about 70 millimeters in width. I think this is the oxen cough, maybe 65. So this could be slightly bigger, but this is square and this is round. So, but anyway, look, they've both got large heads on them, which are fantastic for using metal wedges. Anyway, look, there's probably, to come to a final conclusion about all these splitting mauls, if you're going to go out and purchase a splitting maul, just be careful of some of the cheap Chinese ones. This particular one here, there's nothing wrong with the metal. I don't mind the metal on it. And I can tell when I'm grinding them down how hard the metal is. But it had a huge beveled angle on it, and it was bouncing off the timber really bad. Same as a Spear and Jackson, it was bouncing off the timber really bad, until I re-profiled them and got them to around a 45 degree bevel. This one here is lucky if it's got a 40 degree bevel, and it's probably got only less than a millimeter bevel on it. It's almost to a final point. It doesn't go blunt because of as long as the metal's around about 50, 55 Rockwell, it can stand up long as you don't hit any rocks in the ground. And when you do split, try and split on a piece of timber, and avoid hitting the dirt, because there'll be definitely little pebbles or rocks in the dirt, and it's the quickest way to damage the edge on your splitting maul or your splitting axe. So that's probably about it for me now. I don't think I'm going to collect any more splitting mauls. I've just about got that many of them. I think I've got about 17 of them, so they're all pretty good. I don't have a particular favourite, because although I must admit this one here is the Fiscus ISO Procore, if you've got a really big log weighing in at 3.5 kilos, it really does do the job. It's a little bit heavier than the oxen cough, but not much. But or I should say the Stihl. This is a favourite. Look, I liked a lot of them, and as I said, it's horses for courses. Depends on the weight, depends on the price that you pay for them, the quality of them. I don't like paying top dollar and getting inferior quality, so most of these are reasonably priced and they do a pretty good job, and I only criticise something unless it's really poorly made or something's really wrong with it. So I don't have a clear winner, because as I say, they're all made for a purpose and they all work fine. And yeah, look, thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. Any comments are really welcomed, and I hope that some of the mauls that I've gone over or explained may help you in purchasing one. There are lots of other videos on the mauls, because as I've been collecting them, I've been doing reviews on them, and hopefully you'll find them okay. Thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. Bye for now, and please subscribe to the channel.